Yeah, we are live now.
Great. Welcome, everyone, to episode 3 of the Extinctionist podcast. Thanks for coming. So today's topic is about why extinction is the only right thing, the only right movement. We're going to be covering the morality, ethics, philosophy of it, as well as the practicality, because that also, affects if it's the right thing or not, if it's realistic. Firstly, let's cover a couple little news bullet points about the movement. We're doing really well on Reddit at the minute. We're approaching 1,000 followers, which is quite exciting. Again, we are constantly finding new people in favor of extinction that are flocking to the movement. So very encouraging stuff. Honestly, I think it's going to be a massive movement in the future, like massive. It's the most all-inclusive movement. It's the only one that doesn't discriminate. I mean, there's a website dedicated to extinction just for Earth, right? But that literally just discriminates against non-Earth. What's the point, right? This is the only movement, the cosmic extinction movement, that doesn't discriminate at all, covers all bases, all points, right? Suffering for all. So yeah, looking pretty positive to me, Steve.
Yeah, yeah, it's actually inevitable. If intelligence and ethics keeps growing, people should come to society will come to the pro-extinction conclusion.
Exactly. Now, is there any topic you want to start with, or should I just dive into some points?
Yeah, you can dive into it. I'll join.
So, in terms of why extinction for all is the right thing, right? You have to think about the weight and value of suffering versus happiness. We're not going to think about rights because that's just baloney, basically. The whole, oh, you're encroaching on people's rights. It's meaningless, essentially. In the greater discussion of people suffering, rights have no effective value, right? The only real value worth thinking about is ending suffering. So if 100 people live happily, knowing that one person is suffering horribly for them to exist, then those people are monsters, right? If they had any ethical backbone, they would be horrified knowing that their existence depended on the suffering of others, right? In a society where that was happening, you would hope that people would say, you know what, this is wrong. We can't have this. We need to rescue the sufferer. We need to do something. And if you look into sort of, well, I don't want to say objective morality, but maybe it is objective, Steve, right? If you think about objective morality as being like the most correct morality, essentially, right?
Yes. So suffering is objectively bad, right? Whether it happens to you, to me, or a small insect, or a blue whale, a woman or a man, an animal or a human, it's objectively bad. All sentient beings want to avoid suffering, right? No, nobody wants to burn alive. Nobody wants to starve. So, like, if suffering is objectively bad, then eradicating suffering is the objective morality, right?
Now,
So
one
we
of the
can
main
say for a fact that okay, suffering is bad, right? So and we can say for a fact that okay, these good things in this world, that maybe music or dating or anything that pro-lifers claim to be good, they actually don't justify all these sufferings, right? So obviously there is a big asymmetry here, and suffering is greater, and nothing can justify it. So obviously, objectively, we can say that uh, this is the correct thing. If you want, if you are thinking about good and bad, if you are thinking about do's and don'ts, we can easily base it upon suffering.
Yeah, I think one of the main problems that people have with understanding this is that they see it as kind of like a balance, right? They think, well, if 99 people are happy and only one person is miserable and suffering, then that's a good trade, right? That's good. That's 99 for 100. That's a good deal, right?
Yeah.
They think that's worth it, that somehow justifies it, right? That there's an amount of pleasure and happiness that can justify suffering.
So by that logic, we can justify gang rape better, right? The more people you add to raping a woman, the better, the more ethical it gets, right? So like if 10 people are raping a woman and deriving pleasure out of it, add 20 more, add 100 more, it makes it better, because you look at the net positive, right? 100 people are having, see, sex is one of the most pleasurable things. So as living beings, we only derive pleasure from two of the greatest things, that is sex and food, right? So um, like sex is one of the most pleasurable things. So if you justify suffering with pleasure, if 100 people are having pleasure, and that can justify one person suffering, then you can easily justify gang rape, right? The more people you add to a gang rape, the more ethical it becomes.
I mean, pretty much, right?
Yeah, that's their BS logic, pro-lifers.
Yeah, basically. Now, I think a lot of these pro-lifers, they have this very naive, unrealistic view in their head, right? They take the argument about suffering versus pleasure, and they absolutely steel man the hell out of it, right? So in their head, you have an absolute utopia, billions, trillions of happy people, no suffering. And even if there is just, let's say, one or two people suffering really badly, they think that makes it absolutely worth it. That the idea of ending all of that happiness just to end some suffering is crazy. It's crazy talk. How can you talk about ending billions of lives in order to prevent a little bit of suffering? The maths just does not work out in their heads, right?
But these very same people, they will say that rapists should be stoned on the street. They should be killed. They should be shot in the streets. They should be punished heavily, right? So if that is if millions of people enjoying, and a few people suffering for it can be justified, then this uh, you know trafficking, sex trafficking can be justified, right? According to their logic, millions of people are watching these videos on the internet, who are getting pleasure, right? Out of raping children, right? So that should be justified, right? So their idea is crazy. They shouldn't interfere with child pornography, using their own logic against them. That's what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
See, the way I like to think of it, especially with this steel man utopia, billions happy, one person suffering, right? Is, in that scenario, an ethical or empathic person is going to be thinking, this isn't right. That I can empathically feel that person suffering right now. I know it's happening. I can't abide by it. I can't accept it, even if it means millions of people get to be happy, right? And essentially, allowing that suffering to continue is absolutely abhorrent. It's horrible. It's horrific. But ending the happiness of other people, right? The result is neutral, whereas the suffering is not neutral. It's clearly a much worse situation to have that suffering than to not.
And the other thing is, this um, happy, millions of people are going to be happy thing itself is like absolute bullshit, right? So if you take a look at nature, right? So you just imagine the population of living organisms. It depends on food, water, natural resources, which are very very limited, right? So like even if you feed a starving person, he is just going to reproduce more, and then you will have more mouths to feed, right? If you feed a starving animal, that's how much cruel this world is. So even the only method of controlling suffering that exists is starvation, right? So so like you just feed some animals, you just feed up some people, they just reproduce and create more people, then you have to feed them as well, then they create more people, you have to feed them as well. And the resources here are very very limited. How much people can you feed? How much people can you give resources to? How much animals can you give food, water, and basic necessities, right? So it's absolutely impossible. All this utopia, it will never be possible, right? So all the resources in this world are limited. And even if you feed people, even if you feed starving people, they are reproducing more, and suffering is increasing. You are thinking it's good, but even like out of empathy, some people might give food to animals, give food to starving people. That is actually resulting in even more suffering. That is the cruel kind of world that we live in. That is why we say that suffering is actually part of existence. So as long as sentient beings exist, they will suffer, and that is why extinction is the only solution. Feed one starving person, he creates more starving people, right? And actually, you are not even feeding that starving person. You are taking limited resources from somewhere else, from some other being, right? Earth doesn't have unlimited resources, right? So this is the thing that happens. And the suffering is actually controlled. Even the in nature, the population of beings is controlled by starvation, diseases, predation, etc., etc., right? That is the thing.
Yeah, and we get a lot of people saying, well, how can you go against the will of these life forms? Life wants to live. Animals have, a drive to live and survive and continue. How can you go against that, right? They want to keep living, and you're saying no, they shouldn't, right? But and they make the same argument with suicide, right? You have people saying, oh, we should let animals decide if they want to live or die, right? It's just complete nonsense, right? In all of these cases, whether it's humans or animals, we are largely controlled by biological impulses, hormones, hunger, bodily needs, right? And yeah, there is the will to survive, or the kind of a biological programming, right, to fear death. And obviously that's from evolution. That's not that's not your personality. That's not your rationality. That is like one of the
Exactly.
biggest drivers in evolution. It's like the reason we're all here, essentially, is that strong, overpowering desire to avoid death, even if deep down you did want to, stop living. You may not be able to actually make that happen because of your programming. So
So
it doesn't.
here is where you have to look at the irony and the hypocrisy of pro-lifers. So someone is suffering too much. Okay, they cannot bear it, but they shouldn't commit suicide. They shouldn't be provided with peaceful means of assisted euthanasia. But extinctionists who want to live and eradicate suffering, they should go ahead and kill themselves. Right? And the tortured animals, the raped children, all these events must keep continuing. They cannot guarantee their safety, but still it must keep continuing. And they shouldn't commit suicide. Whatever, if you lose your limb also, if you are screaming in pain, whatever happens to you, they don't care. They will send you some. If you say you want to suicide, they will send you some motivational crap, right? But extinction is say that okay, we want to live and we want to eradicate suffering for everybody. Then no, you guys should die.
Yeah. Lead by example.
Yeah, live by example. If only
It's
I had a penny every time I heard that shit.
yeah. It's so illogical, right? We're doing this to help other people. Leading by example isn't going to achieve anything. It's just so stupid.
Yeah. So actually, we have a moral obligation to stay and help all the sentient beings. Yeah. And the other thing is like these people claim like society is getting better through technology. We are getting better. Suffering is reducing, right? We can reduce suffering as a solution instead of extinction. We can uh, we will get to a point where there will be utopia. Technology and societal reforms will get us to utopia. All this is total bullshit, right? So the thing is, had a lot of pandemics in history. Uh, Before 2020, people were very confident that we have modern medicines, modern biodefense, and pandemic like the Black Death or anything was in history, right? It cannot affect the modern society. But in 2020, COVID pandemic happened, right? It's because like whatever medicines you evolve, diseases will get evolved along with it, right? You make some antibiotics, bacteria gets antibiotic resistant, right? Antibiotic resistant strains of bacteria show up, and if police gets weapons, if enforcement officers get weapons, yeah, they get new technology to combat crime. The same technology, the same weapons, criminals also get, right? So if you see like if you take issues like child abuse, it was happening. Yeah, it was happening 100 years ago. It was happening 200 years ago. It was happening all over the history. But today, because of this very same technology, people are able to shoot it and put it on the internet for money. Right? They are running it as a business. Right? So this technology, the very same technology that you claim to have, to will eradicate suffering, also made the suffering more aggressive, more severe, right? So whatever technology you get, the criminals also they can also get it, right? And whatever medicine you create, diseases can also evolve, right? And so there is really no end point to this, because all of it is like survival of the fittest, right? So you keep competing. uh, you think, okay, I'm superior, I have medicine. Diseases are competing with your medicine, right? Whatever medicines you invent, you think, okay, I'm a human, I have brain, I'm superior. When
Antibiotics,
diseases,
for example, that's probably the best example, right? They
exactly,
are becoming less effective.
yeah. And most well-developed countries were the ones who are like harshly affected by COVID, right? So most economically powerful countries, USA, UK, all these countries, right? So yeah, that's why like it's a competition for survival of the fittest. So always criminals will be competing with the law enforcement, right? And diseases will be competing with the medicine, and always the strong will be competing, and they will be suppressing the weak. That is the law of nature, right? So this is why extinction is the only solution. Like uh, whatever technology you bring, whatever social reforms you bring, right? That will be absolutely crushed by this single law, that is survival of the fittest, and suffering will keep happening. So that is why we need extinction to solve it.
Yeah, and even in a utopia, right? You're still going to have suffering, even if you solve or cure all illnesses and diseases, right? You can't cure natural disasters, accidents, emotional suffering. These are things that just can't really be stopped, essentially.
Yeah. Even suffering cannot be stopped, right? Yeah, even if you stop something like physical pain, right, that is going to actually contribute to uh, some other sorts of suffering. Because yeah, we have discussed this case before. There was a child who was born without born with a mutation, right, in a gene, and she cannot feel much pain, right? Much physical pain. So what happens is, when she is a baby, she gets an infection in the eye, and she starts scratching her eye because it's irritated. And she's 1 year old, and she keeps scratching her eye at the night when nobody is looking, right? And at the morning, it got to a point where she scratched her eye to a point where it should be amputated and removed. And then when she's old, right, she they have made a video about her, and she's crying about her condition, right? This is this is not utopia. This is dystopia, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And transhumanists, there is a group called transhumanists. They want to actually make this, make everybody like this girl. They believe it's.
The thing about transhumans or transhumanists, right? Um, and this is what I say every time people mention it, is like we're already doing it, right? We're already doing transhumanism to some degree, right? And society is already trying in lots of different ways to reduce suffering. Okay, so it's not either extinction or transhumanism, right? Society is already doing that. Okay, but it's a lot better if we do extinction as well, essentially, and sooner. Um,
Society, that's why we know for sure that it will fail, right? Society is already doing that, but not able to accomplish it, right?
yeah, exactly. But it's not like, oh, you can't do extinction because you have to do transhumanism instead. like, well, we're already doing that. We can do both, essentially.
The
And
thing
the other thing
is,
is,
it's transhumanism. It is just a waste of time. It's both scientifically and uh, uh, logically impossible. Like, what you essentially have to do is you have to pick each and every organism separately. You have to take biopsies out of them. You have to sequence their genome. You have to study their genes and make personalized that too you cannot do anything, right? So you just keep removing all the things with your brain. You will just end up with a plant, right? The very things that make you sentient are the things that cause suffering, right? And it's not like suffering is it's not like you can keep pleasures either, right? So like deprivation of pleasure is also suffering, right? So even if you keep you just I'm just saying, right? I'm just blabbering like transhumanists. Let's just logically debunk them, right? So let's just say that transhumanists removed all the suffering genes. So they just keep dopamine and all that things, right? If somebody is going to be deprived of dopamine, they are going to be suffering, right? You just imagine, that is deprivation of suffering, right? Sorry, deprivation of pleasure is suffering, right?
yeah, it's like what are we going to be? Just like heroin addicts, basically?
Even for heroin addicts, you have to provide them with heroin every day, right? That's where transhumanism fails, right? You leave all the other utter, see, wherever you go, transhumanism will be nonsense. Okay, but like uh, even if they eradicate all the sufferings, they just keep pleasure. Somebody should give that pleasure, right? So if somebody is deprived, so like let's say that you just have dopamine receptors, right? And buying a car makes you satisfied, makes you secrete dopamine, and you're happy if you are buying a car. You shouldn't be deprived of buying a car, right? Then you will be suffering, right?
Mhm.
So if you want to eat some food, some tasty food causes dopamine secretion for you, and you are deprived of food, then your dopamine won't secrete, right? So that is a blunder mistake, right? Like whatever is suffering is actually opposite of pleasure. When you are suffering, that means that something is deprived of you, right? Food or something is deprived of you. So that is the that is the cause of your suffering. So if you provide that, then yeah, your dopamine will secrete. So if I provide you a peaceful house, a car, something to play video games in, some food, you will be having a lot of pleasure. But if I take it away from you, you'll be suffering, right?
Yeah, and there's no way to guarantee that you're going to keep getting that.
Yeah, obviously. That is what I was telling a moment ago. Obviously, the resources are limited. So the world is going to this life is going to balance itself by starving, by starvation, by diseases, by predation. This is what is going to happen, right? So like if you cannot give everything that everyone wants, because obviously you want to keep wanting more. Even if I give you a car tomorrow, you will not be, even if I give you a PlayStation tomorrow, you will not be satisfied, because there will be another thing, that is PlayStation 6. right? Then after that, you need 7 to satisfy yourself, right? Otherwise, you are going to get bored. What is boredom? Again, suffering, right?
So, another argument, moving on more to sort of the realistic or practical application of extinction, right? Is someone said yesterday, right? So you're going to cause all this suffering with extinction. How is that okay, right? They said, your idea of extinction, it sounds like the most painful, violent, the most vast suffering event possible, right? But how long has life been around on the planet? Millions of years, right? Millions and millions of years. That's millions of years of suffering. Millions of years of suffering for trillions and trillions and trillions of life forms, right? Now, the way that we could actually cause extinction, it doesn't actually have to be that painful necessarily. Obviously, we still need to develop the method to actually implement extinction. But I think people have quite a limited imagination when it comes to actually how we could do this, right? It doesn't have to be nuclear hellfire, does it? There's other potential ways that it could be done. And even if it were to be a painful method, that's still going to be much shorter in the grand scheme of things. And if it ends the future of millions of years of more suffering, then that's definitely a worthwhile trade-off, isn't it?
See, all these people who talk about will to live, right? Like when animals die naturally, do they still want to survive? The answer is yes. Even if they die, how many people wish for immortality, right? Wish they never die, right? So even the animal some animals who are naturally dying, they still move towards food. They still move towards water. They still move towards survival, right? So that means even when uh, you are dying naturally, right? You see your will to live is still being violated. So what if you keep this as a measure for ethics, then you definitely have to be an extinctionist. Because if you let life continue, so all these beings right now they are gonna die, but before dying they'll reproduce, and then they are all going to get their will to live violated. Then they will reproduce, and then they are going to get their will to live violated, right? So essentially, those who say that extinction is violating the will to live, uh, this is this is not acceptable. You are actually the one who is supporting mass death. We actually want to end the death. Even if you take death as something very bad, then to extinction is the only option.
Yeah. I am convinced that it's just some biological hardwiring in their brains that are biasing them towards pro-life.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've been looking into the effects of the amygdala, haven't you?
Yeah. So yeah, obviously, amygdala is the one part of the brain that is responsible for emotions, right? And prefrontal cortex is the one that is responsible for regulating these emotions and making rational thoughts. So it has been proved by scientific research that if you have lesions in prefrontal cortex, then you will behave unreasonably, you will behave emotionally, you will behave out of the second of aggression, second of depression, the second of anxiety that you get, you'll behave like a totally emotional person. So yeah, like if somebody whose amygdala is more dominant, they won't be able to think very rationally. They are prone to thinking like a racist. They are prone to thinking like a narcissist. They are prone to thinking like uh, you know
Pro-life.
thinking from survival instincts instead of rationality.
Mhm. It's like being impulsive, right? Going off of
Yeah,
automatic instinct instead of actually thinking about things.
yes, exactly. So if you think about it, death is like you having a sound sleep, and while sleeping, you don't wonder about whether you'll wake up or you'll just die off, right? So all that you remember is going to sleep and waking up in the morning. So that's what nothingness looks like. There is nothing to be afraid of it. But yeah, these people think through survival instincts.
Biological programming.
Mm.
Mm. So do we have
So
any
we have some
do we have
comments
any
we can
comments?
address. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
display them. Right.
Okay, great.
So this is a comment from Aditya Nishad. He's asking, will we consider extinction of plants as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, the more thorough the extinction, the lesser chance there is of life returning or continuing, right? So plants have DNA. All life on Earth has a common ancestor, obviously. And so, yeah, we would definitely go for a complete extinction of plants, just on the off chance that they evolve into sentient life.
So the thing is, there is a difference like between plants and animals that we have to clarify. Like if hypothetically, if all sentient beings go just vanish like tomorrow, and only plants will be there, and sentient beings won't come back, won't evolve out of other microorganisms or plants, then we would be fine with that kind of extinction. We want extinction for sentient beings who have the capability to suffer. But as James said, it's about making extinction as thorough as possible so that life doesn't come back. But moral consideration should only be given to animals who are sentient, so who can experience.
But what do you think, Steve? There is a chance, right, that plant life could eventually evolve into sentience, right?
With plant life, I am a little bit doubtful, but microbes, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's better to be safe than sorry.
Obviously. As fast as possible, as thorough as possible. It's not like you are going to like pick sentient beings out of non-sentient beings and make them separately extinct. So you don't even have to worry about things like that.
Do you have any more comments?
And
One thing I find on the subreddit is that I engage in a lot of these debates on the Reddit, and you do find that if you continue debating these people long enough, they pretty much usually just stop replying, right?
Yeah. What? I was just searching for a comment. We have a comment.
Okay.
Like, can you repeat your question, or you want to react to this first?
No, I was just going to say that, you know, if you continue debating people long enough, whether it's on the subreddit or wherever, right? I find that they tend to stop replying because they've run out of excuses. Essentially, when you bat away each one of their silly reasons for being pro-life, eventually they just run out of things to argue against you with, right? And they disappear.
Yeah.
So effectively, we can answer every question people have.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we are the ultimate movement. There is no more logic beyond this. Yep.
Okay, let's have a look. Is it not possible we could create a perfect, all-seeing entity with AI which could prevent all cases of rape, starvation, torture, molestation, etc.? Basically, creating God, right?
So I think this person watched this series called Person of Interest, or maybe the anime Psychopaths. So this is like the AI thing. It just
Seen both of them.
yeah, it just sees all the people and calculate who's gonna do crime. You watched too much series, I think.
Minority Report.
Yeah. So I don't know how. So the thing is, you must be able to place a camera inside trucks where people traffic children and animals for sex slavery, right? You are not able to do that. That is the problem. If you are able to find their trucks, why do you want to keep a camera inside there and monitor them with AI? Just take them and put them in jail, right?
So I think even if you could invent this kind of thing, even if you could, right, it would be, millions of years into the future, I think. And even then, it's not realistic. Plus, it discriminates against animals and extraterrestrial life as well. It does nothing to help them. Like, what are you going to do? Have
And even
stops a tiger from eating a zebra? Like,
another thing is, even if you invent such a technology, a great technology which can monitor, criminals, right? Same technology can be used by criminals as well. Somebody is going to practice their survival of the fittest law, right? Somebody is going to amend their natural rights and sell this technology to criminals to get money.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, even in these utopias, right? I mean, there are so many factions, so many ideologies. I mean, in today's world, we have terrorists, we have different nations fighting each other, different religions fighting each other, right? So there's always going to be conflict. There's always going to be a reason to use this technology against each other. And you're not just going to have a world where everyone's getting along happily. It's not realistic.
See, criminals are going to exist anyway. So even if you monitor all of them, they can if you bring this technology, yeah, police can monitor a lot of they can consume a lot of data and process it. So can criminals, right? They can make an AI that can get into your child's webcam.
Yeah.
If they make this technology, like, see, they made an AI, right? So obviously now AI technology is also available in the dark web, right? They made internet, then they made darknet, they made AI. AIs can be used by criminals also. So if they make your technology, that can also be used by criminals, right? Whatever technology you make, it is subject to criminal activity. It will be subject to politics, right? Control. If great technology comes, somebody will try to monopolize it, make a business out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just another utopia argument, basically, right? The AI is not going to be able to prevent natural disasters. It's not going to be able to prevent all diseases or crime or suffering, emotional suffering. It's just not. And even if it could, that would probably be like what, thousands, millions of years into the future. So why would we wait all that time and condemn so many, trillions of life forms to suffer just to have something in the future? It doesn't make any sense.
So this is a classic optimism bias. Like, like you think that if you just make this technology, everything will be all right. But the thing is, we already have a lot of technology that is supposed to mitigate some suffering, but it is also causing the very same suffering. Right? So, like, whatever you take, you invented the internet. Okay, it's helping a lot of people, right? Even we are advocating for extinction on internet, right? We are advocating for including all the animals, non discrimination on the internet. The same internet is being used for child pornography, right? So you are not in that end. You are not in the end of child pornography. So you tend to think that okay, internet is all good, society is getting better. If you are in that end, obviously you will know okay, this technology is not good. It's not reducing suffering. It's just increasing aggression.
Like even China, they censor their internet, right? But they can't stop people from just using a VPN or a bypass, right? So even the biggest countries, they can't use
The
the
whole
technology.
point, whole point of an going through Tor onion networks is you cannot be found unless you reveal your details on the dark web. You cannot be found, like address or something. You just reveal it to your friend, your name. You cannot be found. Yeah.
Do we have any
So
more
yeah,
comments?
that's what like people invented VPN, right? So like that, criminals also will keep inventing. Even VPN can be used for good things also. The people in China might be using VPN to access the internet, and I don't know if they are doing it, but I'm just saying they can be talking for something good, doing some activism also. But same VPN can be used for by criminals to do bad things too. That is the thing about technology.
Unfortunately,
And
yeah.
whatever, even this is the same case with social reforms also. If you take social reforms, right? You just say that okay, we'll make people vegan, right? Okay, you make people vegan. Let's just get theoretical again. These people, let's say that they convince everybody to go vegan, and they just close down all the animal industries, right? What happens is it essentially transfers the suffering to wild animals because 35 million square kilometers of land is being used by animal agriculture. if it is subject to reforestation or afforestation, then forests will double and wild animals are going to suffer instead of farmed animals. So it's an absolute waste of time. And if you are anti-natalist, it's even worse than that. So humans are the only species that can take care of other species. So without them, these animals, they are going to suffer even more, and even animal population is going to increase because as humans we consume uh, 1,000 times more resources than animals because we don't just need basic resources. So for example, I need a table which requires hundreds of liters of water to be made, which requires cutting of a tree, which requires farming, right? So all this land, all these things that I consume is actually like preventing wild animal population. So obviously this will also our anti-natalist world and vegan world also will be a dystopia. So these anti-natalists and vegans, what they do is they essentially discriminate. They just say that we don't care about wild animals. The thing is actually, yeah, the thing is actually there is like zero difference to the victims. Whether a calf is starving in a dairy farm or a deer is starving in a forest, the deer cannot be like, at least I am not that guy. I'm really happy a farmer is not the cause of my starvation. I'm starving naturally, so I'm a little bit more happier than that guy. Can they say that? So starvation is starvation, no matter the cause, right? And even if you argue like that, I can also argue this starvation is also caused. It is caused by inaction of vegans, inaction of anti-natalists. Inaction is also an action. You're choosing not to help them, right? So that will also result in a dystopia. We all know, like, whatever social reforms, these have also not been effective, right? We all know how communism failed miserably. Right. So anarchism is just total bullshit. So whatever social reforms you can take, they are like total BS, which will result in even more dystopian world. So neither technology nor social reforms can solve suffering. Only extinction can.
So why do we think that vegans, for example, are happy for wildlife to suffer so much? Why do they think that's okay?
See, different vegans. See, I've been doing vegan activism for around 11 years before becoming an extinctionist. So I think I know their psychology pretty well, right? So the thing is, 75% of the vegans, they are not even vegan for the animals. They don't even care about farmed animals. They care about the environment and their health. They're vegan for health, right? These people are like total trolls. We can't even reason with, right? So the rest of the ethical vegans, they give many reasons. Like they will say this is man-made suffering. So as a human, I am responsible for it. That is nature-made suffering, which is pure discrimination. Because in their own words, look at it from the victim's perspective, right? It doesn't matter whether you are suffering from getting beaten by James or getting beaten by Steve. You are suffering. That is all that matters. Whether because of natural causes or whether because of human made causes, it doesn't matter, right? So like other vegans are just like it's all about rights. um, Suffering doesn't matter. Rights is the only thing that matters. uh, some of them are quite frankly philosophy morons. So why do you need rights? Why do you need rights for animals? Why don't you need it for plants? The difference is obviously suffering, right? Even rights is a concept that came into existence to mitigate suffering, right? So that is the thing that is objectively bad there. So if rights is the only thing that matters, then me fighting for plant rights should be absolutely justified. If things like rights, bodily autonomy matters, and ability to suffering doesn't matter, sentience doesn't matter, right? So then if I fight for plants, you should be okay with it, right? I can fight for plant rights, right? So this is the arguments that are kept forward by vegans. Like, we are, as humans, we are only responsible for our actions. So by that logic, also I can also say, okay, I don't have to do I don't have to do activism for farmed animals because I am not a dairy farmer. I am plant based. He's the one. It's not my action. Okay, a dairy farmer is a different species of moron.
Mhm.
So he is abusing animals. So I won't stop him. I can draw an irrational line like that, right? The only line you need to draw when it comes to ethics is sentience, because sentience only matters. Sentience, suffering is the objectively bad thing here, and that is what your ethics should be based upon.
Yeah, it's strange. It almost seems like a preference, you know. Some people prefer to care about others, and some prefer not to care.
It's yeah. And the thing is, you cannot expect to convince people, like we have, as we have seen in previous podcasts, right? So modern movements are like, we'll convince everybody to go vegan. No, no, that is never going to happen. We'll convince everybody to be anti-natalist. That will never happen. You have to gather the people uh, who actually see things rightly, see things morally, and you have to force change. That is how changes have happened in history. See, yesterday or day before yesterday, so this lowered caste person was killed. Okay, for dating a girl who's a little bit of a who belongs to a higher caste, right? Again, higher and lower under quotes. So, in India, rights for the lower caste people, equal rights was established like long, long back. Right? They have equal rights. They have a lot of subsidies, and this person was like a privileged person. But still, you these even after getting rights for them, these people weren't able to convince people not to kill based on caste, right? So no anti-racist was ever like still white supremacy exists, right? Homophobia exists despite rights, right? So that is another thing. You cannot solve these sufferings by giving rights or establishing laws. That is also one more thing. Even if you liberate all the animals and give rights for them, there is going to be illegal forms, which is going to impose even more suffering, right? So, you just imagine, you fight for animal liberation. You establish equal rights. They are going to grow animals in basement like cannabis in even more smaller cages to increase productivity, which is going to be intense suffering, even more intense suffering. So these things are like completely waste of time, right? So these things, these people, these abusers, they cannot be convinced, right? The what people have done in social justice movements is they have forced change, they have forced law to change, they have forced a system to change, be it education, judicial, or any system. They have forced the change. They have took over power through protesting, riots, war, whatever means necessary. They took over power and they changed things. That is what is called a revolution, right? This is the only thing that is going to happen. Like, nobody can be convinced of anything. So you cannot convince everybody to be a vegan or an anti-natalist. That's why conflicts are going to exist forever, and as long as sentient beings exist, conflicts between people will exist forever. Because you and me will never stop fighting for extinction. Pro-life morons will never stop opposing us, right? So that's why we shouldn't sit and wait for their approval for anything. So whoever is ethical, so whoever wants to join our movement, right? I wouldn't say preference, but whoever feels the obligation to join to the movement, whoever is searching for a solution, they will join us. We should gather first. So we are in first stage. We should gather and we should uh, force the change that we want. If we wait for permission from others, we will never get it. If you waited for white supremacist permission to establish black rights, still you wouldn't have gotten rights for black people. Still you wouldn't have gotten rights for lower caste people. Because just yesterday or a day before yesterday, somebody who belonged to lower caste was killed because of casteism. Right? White supremacy, white pride marches happen in the world. Right? So if you just go and get their approval, okay, leave your white supremacy, become a Hugan, everybody is equal. Never gonna happen. Ever.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty good episode for today. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Yep.
And we will see you all next week on episode 4 of the podcast.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Stay tuned and check us out on Reddit. r/abolish suffering.